What happens when someone comes with an intention to play a calm game against Gukesh? Let's have a look at this game from the fourth round of the Qatar Masters Open 2023. Gukesh has the white pieces, opens the game with 1 e4. His opponent is Mert Yilmazyerli from Turkey, born in 1992. He's around 30 years old. He has come with a calm intention. He plays e5, and now Gukesh plays his knight out to f3. So, if you want to play a calm game of chess, what is the opening that you would choose here? Most often, it has to be the symmetrical Petroff, because it leads to a symmetrical structure, and of course, a player like Gukesh, who thrives on creating complications, cannot do so much in such a position. Well, first of all, Gukesh takes the pawn. The knight is kicked back with pawn to d6. And now the most normal move is to play your knight to f3. However, Gukesh plays his knight to d3. And it does sound anti-intuitive. It does look anti-intuitive because it blocks your pawn here. And Mert simply takes the pawn on e4. However, this is Gukesh's idea. He plays his knight to f4, and this has been played before. What he wants now is to put the pawn on d4. Here, black plays pawn to d5, and to say that his knight is much better placed on f4 than on f3. So he plays pawn to d4. But if you notice carefully, you will see that the pawn structure is symmetrical. Bishop e7 played by black, and already Mert is thinking he's down to 1 hour 16 minutes. It's kind of a new position for him. Gukesh now places his bishop to d3. This is all preparation for Gukesh. He has come well prepared for this game. And black decides to short castle. Very logical chess, very normal chess. What does Gukesh do next? Well, he also castles it out here. And you can see Aditya Mittal comes in to check out the game of Gukesh. What is this new idea that he's come up with? Now the knight goes back to f6. So black voluntarily goes back, and Gukesh plays his pawn to h3, most likely in order to stop the bishop from coming to g4. The rook settles down on an open file, rook e8. So one could say that this is a very calm position. I don't even know how Gukesh is going to create some play here. Rook e1. It's just going to be a very positional struggle. Bishop goes to d6. And so now we have to trade the rooks. It seems very normal to do that. Yes, rook takes rook, and the queen takes back. Okay, there is some pressure on the d5 pawn, but the knight is firmly defending it. Gukesh puts another knight to attack this pawn. So now there are two attackers. The most logical move to defend it is c6, and I believe Gukesh is going to play it. He does it. Mert is going to do it. He plays it. Now, think about this bishop on c8. It does not really have a great square to develop, and I think that is where Gukesh's small edge lies right now. He goes bishop to d2, and Yilmazyerli plays knight to d7. The knight develops, and now Gukesh, thinking hard, plays his queen up to f3. So you can see that slowly he's building up some pressure against the king. He's brought all his pieces and wants to bring the rook to e1. Black now very, very calmly plays his knight to f8. Knight d7 to f8, and it's a great defender of the king side. Rook comes here and attacks the queen. So while white's position does look very active, after this next move, queen d8, you have to wonder what is it that Gukesh is going to do here. Like, one idea could be to play knight h5 and trade, but after take and bishop comes here, nothing much is happening. So there you have it. Gukesh plays knight e2, and his point is to bring another piece into the attack. Yilmazyerli plays bishop d7. Normal move, calm move. Okay, my thinking is knight g3 is playable here, but Gukesh goes b3. Now this is a two idea move. Firstly, queen b6 does not attack the pawn. Secondly, you want to play the pawn to c4. And Gukesh, you can see, gets up from his chair. He is down to 46 minutes, so he has spent quite some time trying to figure out what to do here. Queen b6, and now the idea of black is that if white plays c4, he wants to trade these bishops. So look at what Gukesh does. Now this is the moment from where Gukesh starts to weave his magic. He first plays rook b1, and the point is, when c4 is played, you can't take because the rook opens up. And if you can't take, then c5 will come. So he brings his rook to e8. For now, Yilmazyerli is playing normal, good, solid chess. Okay, c4 is on the board. Gukesh, on the other hand, is now making the water boil. You know, he wants to create a fire, completely create some complications on the board. But first, he does this. Now, of course, he's not going to trade the bishops. He puts the bishop on e3. Some threats here to notice. One is to maybe take and win a pawn. It's possible. So Yilmazyerli defends the pawn and also attacks the one on a2. What does Gukesh do? Ooh, a3. And this engines do not like, because they say, hey, you can just take. But I think Gukesh's idea is to simply divert the queen. That is what he wants to do. And Yilmaz here goes back bishop d6. He's not too happy with it, and Gukesh plays pawn to b4. Now, the safest choice here is to go back queen d8. And even if the pawn is falling, you can just let it go and play this position. But instead, he takes the pawn on a3, and now Gukesh's strategy has worked out. He pushes his pawn to c5 with 18 minutes on the clock. And if bishop takes f4, bishop takes f4, bishop f5 takes, queen takes, pawn takes, and rook takes, white is still having good play with bishop c8. So he goes bishop c7, and now Gukesh almost traps the queen, because if you play queen a4, there's knight c3 and the queen is trapped. So he goes queen a2, and this again is going to trap the queen. Knight comes out to c3. The queen does not have any squares. Look at how Gukesh, from a position that was so simple, has created such a messy position. But Yilmazyerli is no one to just sit and do nothing. He in fact goes in with the rook, king h2, and now is going to sacrifice his queen. That's forced. He takes on b1. So now he has a rook. And Gukesh must take back. Yes, he takes with the knight. So and Yilmazyerli now takes the bishop. So you got a rook and a bishop and a pawn for the queen. And there's also this pin. So Gukesh breaks it with pawn to g3. 9 points for 9 points. Rook comes to e1. The rook is well placed. And now, how does Gukesh continue? He brings his knight to e2 and tells this rook, sorry my friend, you are trapped now. I'm going queen e3, queen d2, and going to trap you here. Okay, the knight jumps into e6, and these pieces are all sitting and saying to themselves, look, we need to save our rook somehow. What do we do? Well, queen is coming in with the death bell in her hand, h6. And now, by the way, if you play queen d2, then there is knight g5. The knight jumps in with a check. So Gukesh goes f4. He stops it. But with this move, g5, fantastic chess, blow for blow. Now the bishop is opening up. The knight is looking here. The queen comes in to attack the rook. And guys, this position is getting so intense. He takes on e2 because the rook was anyway trapped. I mean, if you would have played your rook to f1, king g2 would have trapped it. So he takes, bishop takes, and now takes the pawn on f4. Gukesh cannot take it, because if he takes it, the bishop moves in, gives a check, and wins the queen. So he plays knight out to c3. 3 minutes for Gukesh, 8 minutes for Yilmazyerli. King h1 played. And the position is so complicated because black has 2 minor pieces and 3 pawns for a queen, which is 9 points equivalent, and queen is worth 9 points. So a wonderful material balance on the board. But one thing to remember is that in such complex positions, Gukesh thrives, and this can be seen here. Now knight comes to g5 and Gukesh plays his bishop to f1. Very accurate move. You cannot really try and exchange pieces and win them because the queen is a monster. If she enters, the position is losing. So that's the reason why knight e4 played. Gukesh takes it. Now very important was to take with the knight, and the position is still very complex. Anything can happen. But instead he takes with the pawn, and Gukesh quickly plays queen e2, and you will see that the queen is all the time looking for options to enter the position. Bishop e6 played. Now if you play h4, move the knight away and take this pawn, your queen will get pinned, so you can't do that. He first goes bishop g2 and he is threatening h4 and taking this pawn. f5, stopping, but although this move looks very nice, it doesn't work out, and it's the 40th move. So you can see that the mistake happens there. h4. Now the knight has to move, and you can see Gukesh took couple of minutes and gets up from the chair and goes away. Knight comes back to f7. Now you might think, oh, queen h5 is the winning move. No, but king g7 and queen has no entry there. So what is the winning move here for white? Gukesh finds it easily. He plays bishop h3, attacks the pawn and tells Yilmazyerli, then I'm going queen f1, attacking here and your pawn. There's just no way to save it. You can see black is not happy. He plays pawn to e3, and Gukesh had spotted this very little move way in advance. So now the idea is maybe to launch some kind of an attack here. So Gukesh calmly brings his king to g1. Another fantastic move played by him. He's playing so well. King g7 played. And now can we go queen f1? It already looks good, but we can also go queen f3, right? You can attack the queen and the pawn. Queen f3. And the way in which Gukesh is making his moves quickly, confidently, it just shows how confident he is in such positions, such complicated positions. Pawn to e2. Well, Gukesh now takes the pawn, but you had to do it because if you moved the bishop, you would have lost this pawn. So queen takes, king comes up, and black is hoping that somehow he can keep his position. But Gukesh says, sorry, this is not happening in any way. He brings his bishop back and is now angling for the b5 or d5 break. a6 stops the b5 break, at least for the time being. And now how does Gukesh make progress? Queen d3, just threatening the simple move, pawn to d5. He goes h5. And now we could go d5. It's not at all a bad move. But there's no need to hurry. A new weakness has been created and Gukesh angles on it with bishop f3. He takes the bishop and attacks it. Knight h6 with just 2 seconds left. Black plays this move. But now Gukesh can actually pick up this pawn. It looks like a juicy pawn. He takes it. He takes the pawn on h5. And what does Yilmazyerli do? He goes knight to g4. But now Gukesh can take the knight, which he does, and double the pawn, so the pawn's entire flexibility is lost and they can no longer keep moving. And now the queen is way superior than the two bishops. There's no question about it. Look at that move. Queen e4 attacks the bishop. So nicely done there. And the bishop has to move. And so it goes back to c7. Okay, just avoid king g2 because that you will lose the queen. You can do many things. Yes, h5. Pushing the h pawn is the best thing you can do here. Also threatening queen g6, h6, h7, h8 queen. So plays bishop to f5. And now the queen comes to e3. Nice little move. Threatening a check. And Yilmazyerli plays bishop e6. Well, queen h6 is just game over, because now with king e7 you can give another check here, and then the bishop would be hanging or the h pawn is queening. And I think it's time to call it a day. Gukesh looks at his opponent and he's like, okay, now I know I'm winning completely, and a shake of hands. And guys, could you ever imagine that this game happened from the Petroff defense? That's Gukesh for you. This game is a perfect illustration of how Gukesh can make anything interesting, even watching paint dry.